Hello, I'm Walt Bartman, and I'm the founder and director of the Yellow Barn Studio. And I want to say this is an interview that I'm going to have today with Craig Amaral, who's one of our instructors, and he teaches a methods of materials course at the Yellow Methods and Materials course at the Yellow Barn Studio, and it's a great course for uh, not only beginning students to learn how to use materials, but also advanced students. Matter of fact, the reason behind the course is all of us have questions about materials. And Craig is actually a real, great resource. He really understands a lot about materials, can answer a lot of questions. I see him sometimes as a walking dictionary. That's what I call him because he has some really unique ideas concerning paint and the process of painting. So, with that, we're going to say, Hi, Craig, how are you doing?
Hi, Walt. How are you?
Good. What we're going to do today is I'm just going to ask you a few questions and, kind of see what you're about and hopefully get people to really want to take your course. And I think I've known you for many years. I think we go way back. Uh, I can't even count, Craig. We talked about this before, but how long have we known each other?
25 years now.
Yeah, 25 years. And honestly, Craig's, a practicing artist. He's been involved in the arts community in Washington for many, many years. And having him on the faculty is great. So let's do this, Craig. Let's just say some things about yourself. How you started? When did you start? Um, what do you think? You know, art's about, and your painting is about. Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
My name is Craig Amaral. I'm a practicing artist. I'll be teaching methods and materials of drawing and painting at the Yellow Barn in the winter semester. I s- started painting when I was young. My mother was an artist, very influential. And so I used to get into her paints when I was about 10, and then nothing for a long time until I was about 36. And I declared being an artist, and wanted to get out of the rat race and make my contribution to the world through art. And it's been quite a journey. I was fortunate to meet Walter when I was 36 and took my first painting course at the Yellow Barn, and have over the past 25 years um, developed tremendously and come a long ways. Um, I say I'm probably influenced tremendously by something that Walter told me in my first course when I told him that I was colorblind, and he was painting at the time and didn't miss a stroke, and said, "Well, that's a good thing because color is not as important as value, and you'll be more sensitive to value." And so that created an opening for me to continue and to pursue my art, even though it's different than what I thought it would be. And I remember thinking, oh, gee, this is what I want to paint. And then, I got a paintbrush and some paint, and what came out of my paintbrush was so completely different than what I thought I wanted that it's been 20 years of trying to learn how to control my art and improve it and to take it to the level that I want to take it at. And I'm still learning every day, and um, learning about archival painting techniques, and they're just a lot different than some of the stuff that's being marketed to us and sold to us by paint manufacturers and paint suppliers.
Yeah, and you had not only did you study at the Yellow Barn, but you took other classes and that,
Yes,
correct?
sure. I remember you saying one time, I told you I was wanted to paint more realistically and photorealistically, and I was taking classes at the Schuler School of Fine Art and Atelier in Baltimore. And you had said, well, if you want a picture, take a photograph. You're learning to paint. You're doing art. So I have this juxtaposition of trying to paint realistically, maybe not photorealistically anymore, maybe not hyper realistically, but to do representational, objective art. And you've been instrumental in guiding me away from trying to just be reproducing what I see, but taking it to another level of understanding the symbolism and the psychology and the the emotional effects of color and sensitivity and compositionally, repetition and line and things that just go beyond copying what I see into designing something that becomes a story. Now, someone says, "Oh, gee, look, here's a picture of a bird. You could paint this bird." And I'm like, "Well, it doesn't tell a story. I want to tell a story now." And part of that story for me is now giving it back to students, and that's a whole amazing thing. Not only do I learn more researching things that I'm going to be talking to students about, but it gives me an opportunity, even though maybe I'm not a famous artist, and maybe I'm not rich from being an artist. The gift of art, which I get to give back to other people. I thought I would make my contribution in making beautiful art, and maybe my contribution is going to be in helping someone realize that they can be an artist.
Yeah, it goes together. It's not something separate. I think, inspiring people, students and followers, people that are interested in what you're doing. One of the things, Craig, that has interested me and why you're teaching at the Yellow Barn really is about your fascination with materials and exploring these materials. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. So I follow a couple of groups on Facebook, and certainly you taught us a lot about materials in your workshops and your classes about how to mix colors and color theory and things of that nature. But after 20 years of doing this now, I'm picking up a tube of paint and I'm looking at my titanium white that's titled titanium white. I bought it from a manufacturer thinking it's titanium white. And now, I'm learning to read the labels and understand what fastness is and what the mediums are that these paints are manufactured with. And I come to find out that my titanium white is got zinc paint in it. And we now know that zinc paint causes delamination problems. The chemistry that's going on. People think that paintings are static, but they're not. After 400 years, there's still chemistry going on in that dry paint layer. There's still metal ions combining with the fats from the linseed oil, and they're producing metal soaps, and some of them are destroying paintings. So we're seeing that maybe canvas paintings on stretched canvas are not the most archival substrate to paint on. That panels and now the panel industry is exploding in terms of wood panels and composite metal panels and things of that nature. It's interesting because aluminum is such a popular metal panel to paint on, composite aluminum panels, and aluminum is one of the culprits. Zinc, aluminum, they're causing problems in paints, and these manufacturers are doing things like putting aluminum stearates into the paint in order to emulsify them and have them be consistent and have every tube have the same consistency throughout their color range of their product range. And that may not be the most archival thing to do. So I'm slowly and resistantly, and I'm going to talk about in my class, making paint, making your own paint. There are a couple manufacturers out there. There are people that are collecting earth minerals, the ochres and things like that, and that are non-toxic. Toxicity is another thing. Um, you know, bef- Mineral spirits, turpentine wasn't even introduced into painting until after the Renaissance.
Mhm.
Those painters, they soaked their paintbrushes in linseed oil, and they changed to linseed oil every couple of weeks. They weren't even using some of these toxic compounds that are now, uh, you know, being marketed to us as artists, and we don't know any better. And so we spend 20 years inhaling turpentine, only to realize that that came later. That came in the 20th century.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting as well. I mean, the thing that this course that you're going to be teaching, uh, people are going to get a lot of a lot of knowledge, and this is what we want. We want them to understand the materials and that they're working with. The uh, what will you be doing in your class?
We'll be having a lot of fun. We'll be learning a lot. Um, the technical material is the easy part, but making it interesting in terms of assignments, doing demos, things of that nature are, so I'm not just talking to people for 3 hours about, what kind of junk is in their paint or something. Um, those are going to be some of the things that, you and I had talked about, maybe having them make their paint, maybe having them, their list of materials be some dry pigment and being able to make some watercolor and uh, gouache and some pastel out of some pigment, to get a closer connection with what they're working with, and not just something that came out of a tube. We have no idea that what's in that product.
Yeah. Well, I think this is great. I think so. Would you just be concentrating on paint, or are you going to be doing drawing materials? What are you
I,
going to
I'm going to try to steer away from the things that everybody else is covering. So I'm not going to teach people how to draw, but I'm going to talk about graphite. I'm going to talk about the pencil. I was going to go through, basically drawing is such an important foundation to painting that I really can't talk about painting without saying, hey, look, this is paper, this is pencil. I mean, I talk to people who don't even know that there's 16 different hardnesses of lead.
do?
So yeah, we're going to briefly talk about drawing, and I'm going to mention things, along the way. I'm going to mention composition. I'm going to mention dynamic symmetry, and things of that nature. I'm not going to teach them, but I want people to be aware of them. So, and I'll give them resources. If this is something that they want to work on more, I'm going to talk about the papers. I'm going to talk about engraving and printmaking. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there, but at the same time, I'm going to have people in there that are watercolorists, acrylic painters, um, oil painters. My understanding of oil painting is probably more in depth than watercolor, but certainly I paint in watercolor and sketch in watercolor. Um, I sketch in pencil. So we're gonna cover everything from supports to pigments themselves to the mediums that go into pigments. I know that you love painting with walnut and poppy. You know how I feel about they're not the strongest film, and then linseed oil. And you told me I was going to be teaching about cold wax. That's great, but cold wax melts when it gets hot, and so people are going to paint with cold wax, thinking it's just this wonderful smooth medium that makes it really fun to paint with, and then on a 90-degree day, their paint's going to be soft. So we're also going to talk about varnishes. And I was, one of my students wrote to me and said, uh, why don't you teach us how to set up our palette? So, we're going to talk about setting up palettes. We're going to talk about how to present art, framing, matting, things of that nature, from a, methods and material standpoint. And I was also going to maybe throw in some stuff about restoration and, archival, some of the conservation stuff that people go through, some of the what a polar solvent is, and what it means to, a lot of people are varnishing their paintings with liquid or varnishing their paintings with um, retouch varnish, and that's just awful. That makes it impossible. I don't know that something I paint might last 100 years, might end up in some museum, and then some poor conservator's got to try to remove liquid from it.
Yeah, we have some conservators that we're friends with, and I'm sure you can probably get them to be uh, make a small presentation or
A
share.
guest speaker would be great. I'd love it.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of potential here for this course. So I think we're headed in the right direction. Plaza Artist Materials, they can get the materials that you need and your students need. So Craig will be having a list of materials. If you go through Plaza Artist Materials, you'll get a discount, and it'll come as a kit. It'll be under his name. So we'll let you know, and Craig will let you know more about that when you sign up for his course. So now, Craig, I'm going to, with that, unless you have anything else to say about introducing yourself and your course, is there anything else that you
I
might
could
want to
probably
add?
go on for hours about painting, but let's go ahead and get into the artwork
Okay.
and see where it goes.
All right. So here we go. We're going to share the screen. Hopefully, this is going to work. Do you see a shared screen?
Get the shared screen. Thank you.
Okay. Craig, like I said, has been we've been friends for at least 25 years at least. I think one of the things that I wanted everyone to know is that the instructors that I choose for the Yellow Barn come with a level of awareness and knowledge that really our students can benefit from. And Craig is definitely someone who will give you the kind of materials background that you will need. This is an ongoing course, so you can most likely continue the course in another term as well. Um, Craig, you want to speak about your Facebook page?
Sure. So, one of the more recent pursuits is trying to market my art better. And as you're aware of the history of art, it went from court painters to salon shows to gallery, like a gallery guild. You had to get into a gallery. And so the internet has been a great equalizer, and it's allowed people to market art directly. And so, one of the interesting things is that in pursuing marketing and studying marketing a little bit about the business model behind Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, they said make an art group, and offer incentives, offer challenges, engage an audience and build an audience, and build it, and they will come. So I went to Facebook. I went to create a group, and it wasn't so much a group about me as it was a group about artists. And so I share other artists' work, and everyone is welcome to, if they're teaching a class, or they have a website, or they're doing a painting, to post that in the group. And so what I do is I select someone's art daily, and put it up as a banner. It's not just about me or a book I wrote, or my workshop or something of that nature. But so this is a holiday, cup of a hot drink from artist Jody McFarland, and she's the banner for today. So through that group, I hope to share and build an art community within Facebook, and so I invite everybody to come check out landscape, figure, and still life.
Yeah, so they can become a member. This is from your blog. You have a website.
Yeah, so part of the marketing directly, it used to be if you wanted to sell your art, you had to be in a gallery. And now, if you approach a gallery, they're like, well, do you have a website? So it's now almost mandatory that an artist have a website. And the funny thing is, we do so much stuff on our phones and online on our phones, and I hardly ever go to websites. But yet, when it gets down to, hey, I want to buy one of your paintings, you better have a website. I mean, there's people that do sell their art on eBay, and they do sell their art on Etsy. And there's certainly people that sell their paintings. They post a picture of their painting on their Facebook personal feed, and people are love it. I want to buy it. But when you're trying to do a business, and you're trying to brand yourself, and you're marketing your art, got to have a website. And the marketing gurus out there has said write a blog post. The last thing in the world I ever thought I would do was write a blog post. So now, for a year now, I've been writing a blog post every Monday.
Mhm.
And it's taught me a lot. It's helped me grow as an artist and as a person and as a communicator, and getting myself in front of my audience. But it's not something that came naturally to me. I'm a visual person. I'm not I'm not a writer. And some people say they love my blog. They think it's hilarious because I have a kind of, I don't know that I'd call it sarcastic, but almost cynical approach to, some of the foibles I run into in art. We'll see one of my blog posts in here that talks about the art of cowpea. So this is a blog post I did most recently, Better Living Through Cowpea or Chemistry. And because I'm going to be teaching a class in methods and materials, I've been focused on that and doing my blog posts. And, 100 years ago, Indian yellow was made from mangoes fed to cows. It was cow urine from cows that were fed strictly on mangoes. And I've been looking at a lot of YouTube videos about natural pigments, naturally occurring, non-toxic, non-synthetic pigments that, like indigo. Indigo is a plant. They grow the plant, they harvest the plant, and um, they get a dye from it. It's really fascinating to me that you put something green in a vat with an alkali, and you bring it to a certain temperature, and it turns the water green. But when you put a piece of fabric in that green water, the fabric dyes purple. And there's a lot of plants that are like that. There's a lot of, we paint on cotton canvas. Cotton is not an environmentally sound, sustainable. I guess it's sustainable, but the thing is, the process we go through is toxic. It's polluting. And Belgian linen is a plant that's been around for a gazillion years. It's grown in not in Amsterdam, but in Denmark, and it makes linen. Who knew? I thought linen was cotton. I didn't know that linen came from the flax plant, the same plant they make linseed oil with.
Mhm.
So, I'm sharing this kind of stuff on my blog, and I certainly follow other people's blogs and learn about things like pigments and some of the painting best practices and things of that nature. So, now I'm fully engaged. I'm doing a YouTube channel. Uh, I'm trying to up my studio game. I don't have a powerful enough computer to run open broadcast software and multiple cameras, but I tried. I bought a couple of microphones and things to try to have a stream, so I could start marketing my art directly.
Yeah, like all of us, I think we're with this new age of the internet and the importance of virtual reality and virtual teaching, that we're all learning to master that. And I think that this is one of the things that you know, thankfully we have the vehicle like YouTube and that in order to uh, be able to put a movie or like this up so that people can become familiar with what you do. It's a great explanation of what your course is. I would sign up for it in a minute right now just by listening to what you've already said. So with that, we're gonna go on to some of your work and just speak briefly, about things in the work. I think the questions that I'm going to have right now, okay, is when we look at your work, what's your work about?
Well, you and I were talking before this interview about, I continue to learn as an artist, and it amazes me. And some of the stuff that I blog about is that, I had no idea. I don't have a master's in fine art from an art school or something of that nature. I'm kind of self-taught, although I studied with you for 20 years, and so certainly I've been mentored. But you know, every day I learn stuff, and who knew that still life painting was considered the bottom of the barrel of the hierarchy of paintings. I look, I love Van Gogh still lifes. I love Monet still lifes, Matisse. I look at these still lifes, these floral arrangements, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. These artists painted hundreds of them, and a month ago I find out that yeah, that was considered just copying reality. That was not that was not the
Depends on
practice.
how things are looked at. The Impressionists were criticized as well, just for painting what they were seeing. I think that philosophically, uh, I think we have to be very careful because who's the one who determines that? It's
Yeah,
some
no, I totally get that, and today I think of still life as a perfectly legitimate subject as an allegorical or biblical painting.
Yeah, and
And
I think that what you were touching on, I think the earliest landscapes were supposed to be historical, so people could learn from them like they would learn from a
well,
book.
there were battle scenes and things.
Right, exactly. So they were intended, or religious scenes. So they were intended to be stories that people could learn from. And if a still life was just a still life, they didn't see a story in it. But if you look at nature, there's a tremendous story in the whole idea of the material, what the still life might be made of, like flowers, for instance. So I think, the arguments are there by this is what artists do. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci had to, write a treatise on why painting was more important than sculpture. And his whole premise was that the sculptor did a lot of non-intellectual activity when they after they got the idea, they just started sanding the stone. All
You
right.
just start hammering away and chiseling it
Yeah.
stone.
So that was it. Whereas in the process of painting, it evolves and changes.
No,
Uh,
okay.
but those are all arguments. I think you with your background in art history, that's another thing that you bring to your students. So I think this is good. Uh, this is when I look at this drawing, I'm fascinated by it because I really like the line in it, and I think that you know. Is there anything you want to speak about that?
Sure. So, one of the things that you teach is in proportion, when you get to proportion, is how to triangulate. And, in this drawing, you can see where I've erased the triangulation lines to try to place the blossoms. Um, so, if you know the position of any 2 points, you can find any other point in the setup, in the composition. So this drawing, I'm you know it's a underdrawing for a painting, and so one of the problems we have is doing a transfer, like from a photograph or something we want to paint. Like, let's say we do a drawing with pencil on paper, and then we want to paint that. How do you get that to the canvas? And so one of the things that I've recently learned, is that you can paint over chalk. In fact, people put chalk in paint, and it doesn't interfere with the painting like graphite would.
Yes,
And
exactly.
uh, and so, you know, here's a black canvas, black acrylic ground, and it's purchased it that way. And so, what was the most contrasting thing that I could draw on it with that I could then go paint on top of, and it was white chalk. So um, this has got, it's a still life composition. It's challenging to, so one of the challenges was painting fabric,
Yeah,
painting glass vases. These are all things that you get to show off your chops, and one of the things I was doing this summer while I was locked down in the pandemic was painting the flowers from the garden.
mhm,
So I've done more floral still lifes this summer than I've done my entire career.
yeah. Well, that speaks of something, but this is more personal.
And this is my cat. So it's interesting, as a artist, I still take classes from Walt, and I still learn. In fact, this year of virtual learning has been tremendously productive. I've learned so much, and one of the things is that you went through all the colors, except for maybe brown and a few. But, you talked about white, you talked about black, and we talked about painting black, and so one of the assignments was, black, paint black. So I did this painting of black on black, and I have a black cat and was sitting on a black blanket, and it was evening time, so it turned out to be a really powerful figure painting.
Yeah, it's really, I love this painting, and
I should also say, Walt, that this painting won an award
yeah,
on the plain air fine art connoisseur streamline competition, online competition. It got first place in the birds and animal category.
wow, wow. Well,
So
that's it. It's black on black. Who paints black on black? Andy Warhol. All right, so that was, we saw his black shoes on a black surface. All right, but this really worked out beautifully. Uh, then this one,
so this was a commission to paint someone's koi pond, and commission work is really interesting, um, because you paint what you see, you paint what you feel, you paint what's coming out of you subconsciously that you don't even realize, and then the client comes along and goes, well, you know uh, could you put a little of this color in it because that'll match my wall. And so it was interesting. This was a really dark painting, and uh, you know I, I put the sky reflections in there, and I put the fish in there. I i learned a lot about painting fish. I you know really, if I were to do this over again, I think I would put some of the fish deeper down, a little blurrier. I've learned a little bit more about edge control and about diminishing contrast and creating distance in a painting.
yeah,
So when you look at my paintings over the course of 20 years, it's really interesting. I sold a painting where from Tillman Island, of one of the skipjacks, and I had put the rigging in by scratching through the paint and with the butt end of my paintbrush. And I remember I did this show in 2008. I sold this painting to a friend of mine's father, and he's like, "Well, why should I buy this painting?" I said, "Because I'll never ever paint like that again.
mhm,
I now know, how to use the edge of a palette knife to paint rigging on a boat or something, or a liner." And so it marks a step in my progress as an artist. And so I look at some of my paintings and I go, that's really cool because that's where I was when I painted that, and I'm not there anymore.
yeah. What's interesting about this one, I think, is the fact that the water has the same kind of pattern of shape in it, the blues, as the fish. The whole rhythm is repeated and repeated, not only in the fish, but in the reflections.
Well,
That,
repetition, yeah. I mean, all these compositional things. And the interesting part for me is that at that point, that was unconscious. I was painting what I saw as opposed to designing a painting.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I say, if I were to paint that painting today, it'd be very different.
yeah.
But I still appreciate some of the looseness. Uh, ignorance is bliss. It's a beautiful painting for me.
It's
Uh,
designed beautifully, Craig. I mean,
but
the rhythm and the connections, the way our eye connects the fish and the movement of the fish to the reflection, I think works beautifully. And
it's amazing, even when we don't know, we're still hitting on these things that people were able to categorize and then refine
yeah,
consciously.
consciously, I mean, a lot of times it's totally intuitive. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
I paint unconsciously. This is from Tillman Island. It's hanging behind me. It's a landscape. It's titled Last Light. It was right at sunset. I wanted to catch the sun behind me, unfortunately not in front of me, on this dried wheat field, and there's some water in the distance and a couple sailboats and some rigging. I tried to get some aerial perspective in here. Um, it was at a time when I was starting to understand, the tree has a light side and a dark side, and darker greens, contrast between dark and light, and uh, you talked me into putting more yellow in it. So,
Yeah, you're the vibrations in this particular painting between the green and the kind of green violet blue sky that's up above. The sky has all the colors in it, but there's a vibration that you create.
well, that's interesting.
Between
You
all
should say that because I can't see those colors.
Yeah, well, that's interesting too. Yeah, everybody has to understand what it is to be colorblind. It's not an easy thing because you've never experienced red really. Okay, Craig, your tools.
I was taking the workshop with you this summer, the class, and we were talking about radial compositions and different kinds of compositions, and um, you said you wanted us to paint a painting that scared you, and so sharp edges pointed at you subconsciously alerts your mind to protect yourself.
Yeah,
And so, I use all these tools. I come from a background in construction, the drywall knives and drywall mud knives, and you cut the drywall with the razor knife and the 5-in-1 painting tool and the tape measure. It's I would say for me, it was a fun painting to paint.
hmm and these are a variety of your works. So how about this one?
This one's titled Ovule. It's from the pandemic. It's the screened-in, glassed-in porch, back porch, and painting this summer, painting flowers from the garden. This is just what happened to be growing in the garden. These only last for a day, and then they close, and there's some buds on there, and the next day the buds open, and you have it's ephemeral. It's an ephemeral painting, and the glass bottle, the symbolism, it symbolizes the ovary, the womb, and so that's why I titled it ovule, because the plant, the ovary of a flower, the ovum is one of the parts of it's called an ovule. So it's a womb with a bouquet of wombs in
Yeah.
it.
The colors are beautiful here. The design, uh, there's a certain sense of symmetry, but it's offset with the diagonals and the bottle being, uh, to the on the far right of the table. I think that worked out beautifully. But your
Well,
color
that's
combination,
that Fibonacci compositional things that you taught us.
yeah, that worked out so well. This particular piece,
You know, I was blessed with a lot of flowers this summer, and my girlfriend during the pandemic lost her job, and someone sent her sympathy flowers, and I was like, "Oh, Gerber daisies, great! I'll paint them."
yeah,
This is a small painting, and you know, one of the one of the things that I wanted to communicate in that is that you can see some of the underpainting still showing through some of the tone, the ibash or the velatura or whatever the term is for that toning of the canvas. So the stain, and I left it there. So I certainly I could have looking at the weave of the canvas. I have a criticism. It doesn't read that way in real life, but looking at it like this, it makes me want to go take my palette knife and slather really thick wads of paint on top of it, impasto.
I'll tell you what, I love it for its immediacy and its simplicity and the freshness of it. I think does it work? Does it hold together? I feel very much, and I really particularly think you captured the essence of that plant because it does feel, like spring. It feels, like it's a positive thing, and I think we get that from the colors and just the way you handled the paint. And then this particular piece,
Um, this is the garden party, and it was a more involved project. One of the things that I wanted to work on and improve in my painting is the painting of fabric and the folds in fabric. Um, who knew that there were six different kinds of folds? But anyway, so this is your garden. This is a photograph. It's a painted from photograph during the pandemic. Your wife is an avid gardener, Alex, and she provided you with all these gorgeous flowers to paint from. And you set up this wonderful still life. Basically, it's white on white. So this goes back to those colors when we were doing lectures with colors, and we did black on black, and this is white on white, and this is handling white. Um, in different ways, and the different colors that show up. So like you mentioned in that other painting, that the sky has all the colors in it. This white tablecloth has all the colors in it, and it also has the wrinkles, and it has contrasts in it. And you know, certainly our eye goes to the flowers and the vase and the the pitcher and the teapot and things of that nature. But it's this is just a host of textures and colors and things to paint. But it's a really involved painting. It's took a long time.
yeah, it's a beauty as well. Your sunflower.
So we went out to go see the sunflowers this summer to get out of the house and do something out in public that was safe. And we went to a field of sunflowers, my girlfriend and I set up and painted out there. And we it was I don't know how to say this. The farmers, because they normally would have a big tourist draw, were collecting donations. So it said, leave a donation in the donation box, and then go out in the field and pick yourself a sunflower. Well, as you are aware, well, at the end of the day, sunflowers, they tilt their head down. And so this is a single blossom of one of those large, like 8-inch diameter sunflowers in a large vase that was able to hold it with its, looking down. And you know, I had that same fabric, you know, challenge going on. I wanted to improve my fabric painting, uh, handling the lights and the darks. So it's a lot of stuff going on. It's just symbolism, cut flowers. That's those flowers are going to die. That's death, and this flower is looking down. So the title of this is as sunflower lays dying.
Mhm.
There's nothing that I can do. It's not like a potted plant that's alive. So there's some symbolism going on there, and then there's the orange and the green. There's some color contrast, some design, some symbolism. So it works as a whole. It tells a story. So that's what I was trying to. Can I paint a painting of a flower dying in a vase and tell a story?
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask you the weight of the paint. One of the things about your paint is that you really use it, and it's a good solid feeling to your paint. Do you have a particular palette that you use?
I have a double. I was taught with a double primary palette, and I was also taught with a limited palette of burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and white.
Hmm.
So the background fabric was a white sheet or a blue. It was actually a blue drop cloth, and like sky blue. And so instead of painting it the local color, I'm painting on it with my limited palette. But from the double primaries, there's the CAD yellows, the is it Azo yellow and Hansa yellow. So I have this old tube of Hansa yellow, and I bought some uh, cadmium yellow, dark cadmium yellow, medium. Um, so I normally would only have a, a cool or a warm yellow on my palette, but with the zinc yellow, which I was using as a cool yellow, being kind of like persona non grata on my palette these days, I was looking for another cool yellow, a lemon yellow. So I ended up with 3 or 4 yellows on my palette, and some oranges. And what better way to press them into service than to paint
Yeah.
sunflower?
Yeah, this is a beauty, and I think all of them are. This is another one. This is another one that I really love. This is, from my point of view, one of the best paintings for a number of reasons. One, what I look at is that looking down, but I really like the way you play the rhythm in this painting. Can you speak about that at all?
Well, as a still life, it's a bouquet, and there's a it was sent from a florist. It's got a balloon, which is off the canvas, and it's it was a get well soon bouquet of flowers, and so it's not something that I set up. It's not contrived. It is contrived in that a florist put it together as its own form of art, and it's a gift, and it's got some symbolic meaning behind it, but it's not really designed like it would be if, like, oh, here's some bananas and here's some oranges, and we're going to set this up and make it look interesting. So it's just how do I handle the lights and the table and the tablecloth and the darks and the contrasts with this bouquet.
Yeah, this reminds me. You don't realize it, but I studied with Ben Summerford at AU, and Ben did a number of paintings. Is very similar to this, but honestly, Ben was very well known, taught thousands of the really top artists in Washington over his 30 years at American University. And he inspired me to see color, and this feels so much like a Ben Summerford, so you might want to look him up.
Well,
uh,
well, it's interesting that you should mention that because you were the one that taught us to handle the figure in the landscape, as shapes and colors, and they're handled the same way.
mhm.
And so, this is the same way I would paint a portrait it's a portrait of flowers.
Yeah,
And so, it's
but it doesn't seem, Craig, it just seems so natural. In other words, sometimes you can have a really beautiful painting, but it feels like somebody arranged it. All right, but this has such a natural feel to it, just like
it's
life.
artistic because someone arranged it.
Well, not necessarily. It doesn't come off like that. All right. I guess it's the eye level to
Yeah,
begin
I
with.
mean, it certainly is not exotic flowers. They could have come from the garden.
Yeah.
So, it could have been a setup that I
Another.
would run into naturally with daisies
Yeah.
and sunflowers.
Yeah. That's a good one. And then this particular one, which I think is beautiful color wise, with all the subtleties.
Oh, thank you. I have I don't I've been painting 25 years, and this is the first year I've ever painted with Payne's gray.
Mm.
Um, and there's a lot of things I didn't know about. I didn't realize that Payne's gray is a transparent pigment. I figured it would be an opaque, but it's again, it's a situation where we received a bouquet of flowers for a loss of a pet, and so I'm like, well, definitely paint
Yeah.
it, and take advantage of these flowers and paint these beautiful flowers, and so this is an arrangement. It's a bouquet, but it's a design. I designed, what's a good background for this bouquet. I could have painted anything. I could have painted it sky blue. And one of the things that you taught us about contrast was, if I paint it black over the top, that's where my eyes are going to go because that's where the highest contrast is. So, yes, there's a beautiful little malachite vase that it came in, but I want your eyes up high.
Yeah.
So that's where the contrast is.
Yeah, the thing that I'm seeing, Craig, is that your touch has the touch of the nature of flowers. In other words, when I look at your brushstroke, things like that, somewhat impressionistic, and I think we feel that. This is a departure.
This is a watercolor that I took a watercolor class at Maryland Hall in Annapolis, Maryland, and I didn't really know anything about watercolor, and so it's very opaquely painted. I mean, this could have been done with gouache. The whites, of course, are the whites of the paper, but it was an interesting learning experience for me. You know, we were given a photograph, and then we had to do a contour drawing, and then transfer that contour drawing to watercolor paper. And I did that by holding it up to a window and tracing it.
Mhm.
Uh, so you know, transfers are an interesting thing, and you know, learning how to draw a portrait, and learning how to paint a portrait, and then transferring that information is all part of the painting process. That a lot of, you know, if you're just looking at a painting, you don't see some of the tremendous amount of work that goes into them. But yeah, this is one of my rare watercolors, and I probably only have 10 watercolors in my 25 years.
Mhm. Okay, and then these we're going to run through these now a
Okay,
little quicker because of the amount of time.
this
But
is a this is a someone posted a picture on Facebook of their, you know, somewhere they had gone during the pandemic outdoors, and I said, "There's a painting in that," and I painted it, and you know, the person bought it from me.
yeah,
It's
uh,
a it's a it's a moonrise. It's got, you know, water reflection boats. It's got some lights in the distance, which, you know, is kind of counterintuitive in terms of atmospheric perspective. But you know, it's a moonlit night, full moon.
I can
Uh,
see that it's a small painting too.
yeah, it's 5 by 7.
Yeah, and here you are painting miniatures. All right, and then this refined piece here.
This was interesting. I submitted this in a competition that was to be for painter, you know, paintings of self portraits and paintings of other painters. And so this is a painting of other painters painting plein air sunset on Tillman Island.
Yeah, I know that one. I knew that spot. All right.
Yeah, well, that island probably has a name.
Yeah,
I painted it, you know, easily 20 or
yeah,
30 times now. You've probably painted it a
yeah,
hundred times,
yeah.
but it's a painting from a photograph, and so you know they have a different feel. Able, you know, one of the things, you know, we learn to paint from life, and all the wonderful things that you learn from that. And now during the pandemic, we've learned to paint from photographs, and to bring our knowledge of painting from life into changing the photograph, because cameras lie,
Yeah,
and you know, everything's in focus, and
yeah.
you know, we know not to put everything in focus. But there's a great contrast in this picture between the silhouettes of the figures against the reflection of the sun and the water. So
Yeah,
uh,
you did a really fine job with that. And then this will be the last one we talk about. You want to say much about this one?
you know, this is a, you know, we're painting from a photograph during a pandemic. One of the things that you know, I talked about fabric earlier. You know, painting clouds, taking my cloud painting to the next level. You know, some of the uh, I had done a night painting during the Paint Annapolis plein air competition this summer, and there was a fellow, Carl Bretsky, that is a night painter, and you know, I'd learned about how to do the, I don't know what I'll call it, prismatic colors around a light in
Hmm.
at night. So you know, it goes from, you know, from yellow to orange to red to purple.
Sure.
And so This is a painting during a hurricane, so it's a full moon during a hurricane. It's kind of twilight. The lights on the cars are on. The road's wet, uh, and so it's got, I guess, some light, dark, light, dark. It's got some compositional things going on. It's got some symbolism. It tells a story, which is where I'm trying to head, so that I'm not just copying what I see.
Yeah. Well, with that, that's a great painting, by the way. All of these have really been excellent pieces to show anyone who's going to be viewing this video a lot about Craig. That Craig's the way he thinks, the way he talks about his art, and you get to see someone who's committed, like he said, his life to the art now. It's an important part of his life. That's what he wants to bring to you as well. So, Craig, with that, is there any other things that you might want to say to the group before we end here?
Yeah, so we're going to have a really exciting class. I'm also doing life drawing studio sessions, uninstructed. I'll be hosting those in the spring, and I wanted to put a plug in for that. And thank you very much for doing these interviews, and thank you for mentoring me for 25 years, and you've been so influential in my art, taught me so much, and thank you for this opportunity to teach for the Yellow Barn, because that's just one of the coolest things to be able to give it back now.
Yeah, and I think that that's what all our careers have been. I've been doing this for 50 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, you taught, you did a full career in public school at Whitman, and now you have all these thousands of painters that thank you for changing their lives. But
Well, and we have such a great group. So with that, folks, honestly, think about taking Craig's course. Uh, I think you're going to learn a lot, and especially for experienced painters, I feel this is what you need. So with that, Craig, I'm going to say goodbye to you,
thanks.
and we'll be talking.